Eat the mind.
That's it. Recording voice. Like when we can't get away from Zoom, even outside, right? So I want to welcome. We are super excited to have Tommy Archuleta here from Santa Fe, and then also Rebecca Aronson from Albuquerque. We're going to start out with Rebecca. They're each going to read for 20 minutes or so, and we'll record the readings, and then I'm going to stop the recording, and then we can hang around also for some conversation. And if you have questions, or if you just want to have a little bit of insight into their writing or poetry life, we want to have a little bit more than just a reading. So um, and this is also the 80th anniversary of the Trinity bomb. If you didn't already know that, 80 is like you might have seen in the media, the big deal.
This morning, saw that.
What?
I thought of you immediately when I saw that this
I
morning.
know. I didn't even realize it was the 80th. I mean, I remember the 75th, and then all of a sudden I've been to the Trinity site twice. I really have no desire to go back there, but it's great if you ever get a chance to go. It's worth it. They open it up twice a year. This is my book, Atomic Paradise. So I'm doing a little plug, which is all about the Cold War, my experience growing up in the Cold War in poems, and Oppenheimer, who was also a poet as well as a physicist, and the Trinity site, and just all around the world, what we're doing with nuclear. There's a lot of nuclear history. So I wanted to read a quick poem to open up, get us in the mood for poetry, and then we'll have Rebecca. So this one is called Arachnophobia, and it's from Atomic Paradise. At the Trinity site, the morning of the blast, scientists observed tarantulas the size of tennis balls crossing the road. Is my fear of spiders any excuse to wish for the death of innocent creatures? How can I be selective for wanting to save the lives of snakes and all furry things, but be depressed because cockroaches will outlive us all? If we had to bomb the Germans or parts of Europe, would we have done it instead of bombing Japan? Japanese were hinting at surrender. Too risky to invite them to the test. What if it didn't work? How would we save face? Los Alamos physicists jumped for joy when the Fat Man test was successful. Years of work to discover that they really could claim the laws of physics. Uranium and later manufactured plutonium exceeded all bets that were placed on how many tons of TNT would explode. Lucky guy who got the highest bid, 18,000 tons. The baby sold to our military, grown-up gadget thrown into the world. Then we dropped it twice. American ego had to beat the Russians to claim sole victory over Japan in winning the war. The Air Force projected vague numbers of how many distant insects may be destroyed. The reds, the yellow peril, the cockroaches of civilization on the other side of the world. Watching the film later of the destruction caused by the gadget, leveling whole cities and innocent children, tears came to the eyes of the scientists. We actually used it. 0.6 of a gram of pure energy with 80,000 deaths and 80% of buildings destroyed from Little Boy's blast. Oppenheimer was accused of being a Soviet agent by his own hysterical country he worked to defend. Didn't want us to build the H-bomb, the super, more and more powerful ones, inconceivable at the time. We just wanted the device to end all wars. At the Trinity site, the ants go on burrowing and bring up tiny grains of tritonite, that blue-green glass that is now illegal to pick up. Visitors allowed twice a year, so our biggest enemy, amnesia, won't forget. So this is a memory of the Trinity, everybody who's been affected by the bomb. And with that, I'm going to introduce Rebecca. And also we have books for sale after this. So please support poets. You can get books directly from the poets. Rebecca Aronson is the author of 3 books of poetry. Anchor, which is her latest. That's the winner of the Eric Hoffer Award for Poetry and the Poetry Prize from the Philosophical Society of Texas. That's really interesting. And then her other book, Ghost Child of the Atalanta Bloom, is the winner of the Orison Books Poetry Prize. So another winner. And then she has her other book, Creature, winner of the Maine Traveled Roads Poetry Prize. Rebecca has been a recipient of a Yetzirah Fellowship, a Prairie Schooner Strousse Award, the Loft Speakeasy Poetry Prize. We have a Loft connection. And Tennessee Williams Scholarship to the Sewanee Writers Conference. So Rebecca has work appearing recently in the Taos Journal of Poetry, in the Tempered Dark, Contemporary Poets Transcending Elegy, Crosswinds, the Laurel Review, and others. And the fun part, she is the host of Bad Mouth, which is a series of words and music. If you haven't been there, it's this quarterly series in Albuquerque. That's great. So talk to her about getting on that email list. And she lives in Albuquerque with her husband, Tim, who's here, and teenage son, and a very demanding cat. And we all know what that's about. So all right. So welcome, Rebecca. Right here.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Jules and to John for hosting these lovely readings and just nurturing the creative community. I really think it's a great thing. So Jules reminded me about the 80th anniversary of the little louder. Okay.
The program will be over soon.
Helicopter. Yes. So when Jules reminded me that it was the 80th anniversary of the Trinity, I dug through my work to see if I had anything even remotely related, and I don't really, but I do have some Taos adjacent poems. So I'm going to read, Los Alamos adjacent poems. Yes, thank you. That's why I bring Tim along. Yeah, Los Alamos adjacent poems. So I'm going to read one poem each from each of my 3 books and then try out some new stuff on you all. So Creature came out in 2007, and I don't think I've read from it since about 2008. Oh, wow. So yeah. So this first poem is called Rabbit Farm, Los Alamos, New Mexico. And yeah, it's think bunnies in cages. Rabbit Farm. As if a glance were a reach, they flinch and twitch. In each cage gaze is a moonlit sliver, splintering. Fear is a live thing, a ripple rippling, the record of a frog's leap in widening circles. Each hutch is lit as though the sun reached in instead of the red heat of a small space. Breath is a short leap, repeating. Ears are skiffs of light, feathery boughs leaning toward the least hope. Book number 2, which came out in 2017. Los Alamos fire. And I think this really could be speaking of any of the fires that break out here in New Mexico during our prolonged fire season. This is Los Alamos fire. The city held its breath. That is, we in the city held our breath. The dog walkers tugged leashes to a slow stroll while dogs panted for speed. The neighbors with their cream skin and Kewpie eyes reached for one another in the morning light. The woman with the once dark braid gave stern instructions to her damaged son. We simmered together with sore lungs and waited. The air became visible and settled around us, seared particles of forests. As odor contains remnants of its objects, my head aches with crumbled monuments and spoiled crops, with the charred bodies of deer and wood mice. Radioactive ash, the burning ground releases. No one has said a grave is not a grave when the buried thing still lives. No one will say it's time to leave. And one from Anchor from 2022 on a slightly more upbeat note, sort of. Magical thinking. I know we know no cure for this century, with its burning islands of trash, its traps of plastic. On the sale table, a book of photographs is all brightness and geometry, well-framed portraits of someone else's daily misery. Yellow sheets hung on the line to look like sunshine against a patchwork wall of dissipating mud. Beauty fools me. I didn't want to wait for what came next. I didn't see what was coming. I didn't ask enough. Will these be the mantras for the next decade? Because it's painful to know the truth, I eat little packets of seaweed and imagine coral reefs somehow bubbled back from ruin. Because wild poppies grow in sidewalk cracks, fed on gravel and street tar, I carry hope on my hip like a weapon. I'm always ready to flash. All right. That's the books. So I've been looking through old files and I came across a little trove of poems that I actually wrote during the early days of the pandemic. So this is an old poem newly excavated. And this one is called Notice One Thing Every Day, and it's some piece of advice that somebody had posted on Facebook. So from the, first couple of months of the pandemic. No one says the rules of the game. I notice first a swarm of bees. That's a lie. There were at least 1,000 visions before that moment, but the swarm is the thing that means. It menaces and sparks, shimmering from a distance so that I keep moving closer, squinting until I hear it. I spot the single bee closest to my face, the engine of a wild herd circling in discs of sunlit pollen. Such holy dread, so much elation in the throng, the ring of peril and delight, the whole risky world on show. This next one is pretty darn new. From just a few weeks ago. Time capsule. It's always a field, ghost of nectar on the wind, peaches devolved into lather the ground sips. So much living is undoing. On the porch, Ristras the future will turn to dust. Somewhere a bright hollow where children swim and dusk grows silhouettes that resemble faces, where I am still moving through shadows in a dress I wore to tatters. One summer I drove roads that didn't lead anywhere I recognized, dust clouds following like a good dog, gravel and space, a lone farmhouse, signs for the ice caves, other places I wouldn't enter. I drove with a void in my chest, drove through lands so hushed I could almost believe that silence was insight, that I was learning something I wouldn't have to learn again. Another new one called Night Bloomer. We have in our house, we have a print. Can you all hear me okay back there? Yeah, okay. We have a print of a Chagall from a library sale, actually. This is not about that particular painting, but just thinking about Chagall paintings in general.
Been to a painting or
Check out a painting from the library, it's from the Albuquerque library.
Yeah. And then at some point they stopped doing that and they sold them, I guess. And Tim found this one at a thrift store. So, so Night Bloomer. In Chagall's paintings, horses might bloom from chimneys, crow's wings petal into a lady's hat, a bride dances on air, and somehow klezmer music buzzes from the frames. That is, I feel something mournful in the celebratory, the night opening like a mouth to release peonies and roosters. This year, again, a plague of moths reincarnates, papers the doors and windows with flurry, the smell of wings singeing against bulbs, a carpet of spent thoraxes. Frightening and a little bit beautiful, this abundance, this rush hour confluence on windshields, moths gushing through the smallest openings, an invasion of breathing. Their wings are well-worn rags, everyone is waving all the time. Nothing is more unreal than the real. For instance, the dog the neighbors exiled to the backyard where it cried all night into our ears, fermenting dreams with the kind of dread that wakes you tearful and filled with a despair so dry and bitter you think you will never taste anything sweet again. In the morning, the yard is empty, as if such desperation never existed, as if sorrow were an imaginary state and no one and nothing was ever abandoned. I wander my own yard, counting little storms of lost feathers, a dozen holes where something has uprooted all the newly planted seedlings, a huddle of wrens scolding as I reach to pick the single strawberry the night has cajoled into perfect ripeness. We only ever do get one strawberry at a time.
Well, that's what Tim wants you to think.
Huh, good point. All right. You all up for about 3 more? Sound good? Okay. Nature poem. I too am cranky about doves and petals, fluttering their soft edges into all of the poems I want to write about apocalypse, making delicacy of the blatant carnage of climate change, the gaseous skies, purpled stripes, and deep orange aurora, polychromatic wonder, toxic air we find impossible to look away from. All those colors popping like Bob Ross painted them himself. Little shell-shock trees, brittle skeletal dancers silhouetted against that flamboyant backdrop. And don't get me started on cranes, how they swoon up into the ether like the embodiment of epiphany. Light bulb, the world is fucking amazing. And here I am with all the other life forms, but guiltier and more invested in wishes than action, while just outside, the first bees of the year are perusing those 2 early apple blossoms and, bottoms up, drinking in what's been left to them, as if the now were the only time they have. This is another quite new one that I actually workshopped with a couple of writing friends today and then revised, and then here it is. So it might need more revision. My guinea pigs can yell out corrections if you want to. This is Heart. I hardly ever think of my own, so quiet in its chest of drawers. If all the appliances are unplugged, I might hear it thrumming its little song in the dark, its footstep, two-step, step stool wobble on the uneven floor of being. My heart in the shed of my body, where I've stored generations of memories, the nightmares of my no longer a baby, boxes of expectation, the wishes of my parents, and theirs, and theirs, and theirs, streaming around it. My heart floats like a jellyfish in my mind's eye, trailing streamers, slightly glowing. It purrs like a lowrider cruising a car show, all decked out and ribboned, the engine visible, revving at the corners. I hear it when I run, when I push my body along a mountain path in the sunshine, in the pelting rain, in first light or last light, in view of an ocean or a desert plain, where an ocean was. Believe me, it was here, roaring the way eternity does, but also lapping as even wild animals do when they find what's cool and sweet to quench them. All righty. I'm going to end on, again, an old poem that I dug out of the files. I have no idea when I wrote this. It's a prose poem. It looks like this. It's a big chunky thing. It's about my grandmother. It's called Lipstick. When I saw the lady, her teased up, sprayed up hair and oversized purse are what made me think of her as a lady. She was counting her fingers over and over the way my grandmother used to. Who is she to have surrendered to impulse so publicly, checking for what she knew was there? My grandmother never wanted to be called anything other than her nickname, Call Me Millie. But we wanted to call her Nanny, as we'd been told, though who told us and when and why are lost to me now. She hated it, though. She liked us fine, we believed, but we were to call her as her boyfriends did. When she died, we found love letters stuffed in boxes with her other collections, scissors and TV remotes, high-heeled shoes, and those chains to hang glasses around a neck. There was so much jewelry, diamonds mixed into the tangled strings of plastic beads, glass brooches, butterflies the size of butterflies, and shiny flower petals always wide open. There were tiny vials with tiny spoons built into their tiny caps. And what were those for? I asked my father, who shrugged. He was getting an eyeful. All that he had tried never to notice, tickets for cruises, photographs, playbills, matchboxes, all up and down Broadway. How she loved to watch bodies on a stage, light reflected on a glass. I learned to fill ice first, then to the brim, amber, scotch, smell singed the back of my throat when I inhaled it on her breath mixed with Chanel number 5 and the wax perfume smell of lipstick in a metal tube that was square, and when you clicked it open with a jewel button, a little mirror framed your lips, whatever shape you desired them to be. Thank you all. Also, I forgot to add, I think, that I am so delighted and honored to be reading with Tommy, who is just the best.
Well, I think I think the rain cooled things down just a tad. Yeah. And can we hear it again for Rebecca? I absolutely love the grandmother poem. Wow. Wow. And we have more back porch and workshops, so take a look at the flyers. Yeah. So it's a great pleasure to to introduce Tommy Archuleta, the current Santa Fe Poet Laureate. And we heard Tommy read several months ago at the Here Gallery in Santa Fe at a wonderful series hosted by Donna Levering, who's here, and Barbara Rockman. And we were so pleased when Tommy was interested in coming down to Placitas for our series. Tommy Archuleta is Santa Fe's 7th Poet Laureate, appointed in January 2024. He's a native northern New Mexican. Susto, his full-length debut collection of poems, was published by the University Press of Colorado and is a 2023 Mountain West Poetry Series title. He's also author of the chapbook Field Notes from Lilly Poetry Review. And most recently, his work has appeared in the New England Review, Laurel Review, Lilly Poetry Review, the Cortland Review, Guest House, and the Poem a Day series sponsored by the Academy of American Poets. And he also was a participant in the recent Santa Fe Literary Festival. Born and raised in Santa Fe, Tommy works with the clinical team at the LifeLink and lives and writes in Santa Fe. So very much looking forward to hearing Tommy. Yeah. I think our quail are getting noisy here.
I just want to thank John and Jill for inviting me over, and it's the last time I read outside was by the river in El Rito. It was like, God, 12 years ago. So it's really nice to be here. Something about being outside. I don't know what it is. It's just, and then it's just really therapeutic to be read to. You know, and so I encountered Rebecca when she accosted me to read in her poetry series. We had to do it online, because it was during pandemic. And then the last time I saw you, we were at Chatter here, and we love Chatter. We'd love to come up to Chatter in Albuquerque. It's just a different thing. So it's nice to get out of the house. So thanks for having me. Everything I'm going to read is from a new manuscript that is getting shopped. It's in the process of getting worked. So this is a test drive. The manuscript is called Bone Harvest. Bone is operating so far as a metaphor for memories that don't seem to want to fade. They just sort of stick in our bodies. Fatherhood is also a theme. When my mother passed in 2013, I didn't really know my father that much. Not as well as an only child. And it wasn't because I got rid of the others. It just worked out that way. So when mom passed, I was able to get to know my father. So fatherhood is a theme. And also insomnia. The speaker is basically going to bed at about this time, sundown, and the whole book is about the mind at work, really, and what it does. And the end of the book is the sun's up and he's trying to make the resolve to do something, the speaker, to get out of bed. So my ego won't let me have progressive lenses, so I have several pairs of glasses. And then I'll try to, so I'm not a happy poet. There's no bubble gum or balloons in my poems. If there's laughter, then it's probably something you need to work out with your therapist. Um, but it's not intended that way. I'm a real quiet because these poems come to me early in the morning. So I'll do my best to help the hearing impaired and try to honor these things. It's so lovely to read with you. And wow, it's gutsy bringing us new stuff. It's cool. Some of these are titled, some of them aren't. Bone is in a lot of the titles. This one's called the Days Before the Birth of Drumming. The son I fathered 2 lifetimes ago rarely visits anymore. Not in the form of a dancing blue sphere, nor as a curved-billed thresher, going on and on about the war, with far too few ceasefires, and all the lambs we slaughter together, because death isn't a guest, but a member of every God-fearing household, as fathers born in fallow bean fields love to say, when they're not scolding the back door for sticking, or reminding his right hand never to feed apple slices to ghosts it barely knows, bearing news of a warm feeling coming not from the arroyo or the roof, but somewhere much closer. This one's titled Day Divining Days Ahead. Blue. That color so scarcely found in nature, yet everywhere inside this house. Just ask my right hand. Ask it what happens when the left one stops trembling, where the trembling runs off to afterward. When work becomes respite from home, eating is the first to go. Circadian fasting, some call it. Like the last stages of dying and sex fully clothed, meals coincide with the rising and setting of the sun. Certain fruits refuse to rot, others to ripen. Cries sentenced never to leave the mouth. Burn scars bred to taunt the darkest clouds. Church bells that only outlaws, cornfield squatters, and crows can hear. Prodigal sons, home now for good. Home, but in pieces. Title of this piece is What Some Bones Eat, What They Cherish. Who knows what's gotten into the nightingales this evening? Who knows what will hurt tomorrow that doesn't hurt today? Oh yeah, that's another thing. Aging. Aging is another thing. Who knows what will hurt tomorrow that doesn't hurt today? Too many trees out there in need of serious pruning. Too many in this town holding far too much in. So, as a therapist, one thing I've noticed is that if I were to boil all of the issues that come into my office and boil them down, I would say that everyone's having a hard time with different forms of uncertainty. And so navigating uncertainty, well, thank God for art, right? A town-wide burning of bones. The beautiful woman bleeding from both ears. The light of her torch dying. And me with no amount of trazodone left to revive it. Soldier your faith, say the finches. But like our young and the unhoused and the barely standing, who can hear them? They're so loud. Soldier Your Faith, my national anthem. Yeah, so politics too, right? But I mean, what poem isn't a political act, really? And what poem isn't a love poem, I guess? So this is a short series of poems. It's a suite titled Bon Canto, canto meaning song in Spanish. Another early winter here to outgun the last one. The silos down south courting emptiness. The mantle's entourage of saints having drained the Fifth Amendment ages ago. Maybe I should burn something. Maybe I should ask the smoke to help me watch over Father when he wanders off again to the praying stone at Gethsemane, that ghost of a garden that knows only one season. I grew up with a picture of Christ praying at a stone in Gethsemane. It's always night, and it always seems to be spring. I have nothing for nor against these winds, plainly sent by a God too young to wield, much less cast peril, too young to fear anything, akin to self-caused pain, or ruminate for days on end threats spun from thin air. Tomorrow night at supper, let's add thanks to the creaking side gate for bringing with it my first Palm Sunday. And along with it, the clutch of palm leaves, blessed by the priest they later sent to prison. Burn them, he said, with Saint Joseph, and soon the winds will stop howling. I burned them when mother's heart shrank. I burned them when father's wings turned to ash. Burned them when my soul and body parted. Burned them when my horse returned. Them both. Yet the howling howls on and on. Thomas, you weren't named after Aquinas, the farmer whose 5-volume apology turned to straw within months of his own end. No, you were named after the shyest of disciples, the all too quiet disbeliever who stood before the open wounds, chalice in hand, studied them closely, took careful stock of his own, muttered something to himself, then made for the garden door. The widow across the way, out burning yet more clothes and old photos at this hour. Who better to wage war against a life given to staring out cracked panes? And through the pouring rain, the robed figure, a plank of shadow moving none at all. Oh, but the urge to hold them both, as if I'd ever break our custom of minding each other's grieving. The rain now turning to hail. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy. I have your book. I'm here too.
I have your one too.
So yes, and Tommy will be happy to sign them.
Yeah.
So thanks to our virtual audience, and I'm gonna stop the recording.